We still do 7 NUFC Matters shows for free a week. But if you want to support the channel, there are a few ways of doing it. Hit the like button on each live broadcast or video. This helps the channel grow. Hit the subscribe button and select the all notifications options. Hit the thanks button to buy a super sticker. You can do this on the live chat too. You can also join our Patreon page or buy us a coffee at the link in all of our video descriptions below. We are also looking for sponsors. If you want our latest advertising rates and how you can get involved, then email John at nufcmatters1892@gmail.com. Thanks for watching.
Critics attack. It feels like I've been talking to myself again. But it's the only way you're ever gonna learn. You look back and it's all in the past. I'm dwelling on the thoughts I cannot say to you. If I don't say the words, then maybe it's not true. And it feels alright when they come and say to you, you're the only thing that makes us all believe. And it feels alright where the worlds collide. Manipulation stands to make us break. What's that you said coming over you? You wish it upon a star. You wish it on a star. You are, you are, you are. You fight back, it's an all-out attack. It feels like I've been taken on the world's machine. Because I want it more than anyone can dream. You look back and it's all in the past. You tell me how you live by all the things you do. Well, you can be yourself, but maybe I'm not you. And it feels alright when they come and say to you,
Hi, welcome to NUFC Matters with me, Steve Raitt. It is a pre-recorded show, and I am delighted to welcome a familiar face, Jeff Brown. How are you, Jeff?
I'm very well, thanks, mate. Yep, really enjoying life at the minute.
The tables are turned, Jeff, because for best part of 30 years, you've rang me up, or producers rang me up and said, can you come and do Tyne Tees or BBC? Jeff Brown here. Amazing to actually be on the boot being on the other foot, Jeff.
Yes, I'm a bit worried about what you're going to throw at me here. Hopefully, I always treated you well, though, Steve. You were always a good one to interview.
You did, mate. You did. You never let me down, and great to have you on. We are here to talk about a wonderful new play coming up called Final Team Sheet. Final Team Sheet's been announced for The Bench by Jeff Brown, Carol W Productions, and Gala Durham co-production, and it's a moving tale of love, loss, and football. So The Bench is something we're going to focus on in the second half of the show. We're going to give it a good plug. It's going to be wonderful. It's a regional tour. It's going to kick off on Thursday, the 22nd of May at the Gala Durham. There's going to be fixtures scheduled across the northeastern Cumbria before concluding on Saturday, the 21st of June, 2025 at the Customs House in South Shields. So we will talk a little bit about that later. I just want to have a chat with you, Jeff, really, about your career, where you started off. I mean, you started off as a journalist, which it's only when you start looking into people's past and seeing where they started off. I didn't really know that much about you, Jeff. You're the man on the telly with a microphone for me, but you were a newspaper journalist.
I was, yeah. I mean, like many kids brought up on football, you want to be a footballer. I sort of knew from a very early age. I was wearing glasses by the age of 7, and although I played football for my school team, I couldn't see. We my mates used to laugh when I got to senior school and would play games after school. if it got too dark, I had to go to my teacher and say, "Can you take us off? I can't see the ball." So I played by like sight and sound. So I knew I was never going to be able to play, but the next best thing was writing about it. And fortunately, my mum and dad were great. When I told them at about the age of about 14, 15, I knew exactly what I wanted to be. And when I go to give talks to schools and colleges and things, I do say I was very lucky. But what I say to kids is everybody's good at something. You might not be the best singer or dancer or the best at maths or whatever, but everyone's good at something. It's just finding that thing. And I loved writing, and my mum and dad were great. They never once said, "Look, everybody wants to get into football matches for nothing. Don't be a sports reporter, be an accountant." Not that there's anything wrong with being an accountant. I'm probably be in a better financial position if I had been an accountant. But I knew exactly what I wanted to do, and my dad was great. At about 15, he said, "Have a look at the local paper, see what sports they don't cover." And I was a big Speedway fan at the time, going through Newcastle Diamonds, and my local paper was the Sunderland Echo, and they didn't carry reports. So I started writing in longhand these match reports, and my dad would drop them off at the Echo office on the way into work, and they started printing them. And after 2 or 3, they gave me a byline. It's by Jeff Brown. And I saw my name in print for the first time, and I thought, "Oh, this is it. This is what I want to do." So from about 15, I had stories in the local newspaper, and my whole life was sort of geared towards doing that. I took CSE typewriting at school. I was the only lad in a class of 15 girls. When you're 16, that's pretty good, I have to tell you. And it was just great. It was something that was in my blood. Went to university. Didn't have any in those days. Long time ago, 1979. Didn't have any journalism courses like they do now. Ended up getting my first job. That was my first picture byline. Look at that hair. Where did that go to?
Wonderful.
So that was in the Birmingham Post and Mail. Wrote to 50 newspapers. Only got 2 interviews. One was at the Chronicle, and at the time I was desperate to come back to the Northeast, and they were hanging on and hanging on. There was me and another lad. They weren't quite sure who to offer the job to, and Birmingham Post and Mail offered me the job, and I rang the Chronicle and said, "Look, I've been offered this job in Birmingham. What about your job?" And they said, "Oh, well, if you take that makes our job a lot easier. We'll give it the other lad." I said, "Oh, great, thanks." Nothing like feeling wanted. So I ended up in Birmingham, which at the time I thought was, I'd been there for football matches and thought, "Oh, it's a bit of a dump, this place." But actually, I loved it. I had 4.5 years there, and I was young, free, and single, money in my pocket for the first time. Birmingham City, Villa. We covered West Brom, Wolves, Coventry. We had 2 major. Yeah, that's my first football match. First one I ever covered. Crystal Palace versus Wolves, March 1985. Again, look at the hair and the telephone, which obviously younger viewers won't have a clue what one of those is. You had to hire a phone at the ground, and I was doing running copy back to the Sports Argus, which was like the Pink, was one of the few Saturday night sports papers, which was the only way to get football results on a Saturday night. Again, how 20th century is that? And it was great. I did a year there on sport. I did my newspaper training, got a job in sport, did a year on the Birmingham Post and Mail. And at the time, I was all the guys I trained with and the girls were heading towards Fleet Street, which again for the youngsters is where all the national newspapers used to be published. One street in London, and a job came up on the Journal, and by then I really didn't want to come back to the Northeast. I thought, "Oh, I've left. I've been away. I'm going down to London. I'm going to make me fame and fortune," and all my pals in Birmingham and back home were saying, "Look, it's covering football in the Northeast. It's your passion. It's what you've been aiming for." And so I took it. And of course, it was the best thing I ever did because I met my wife on the paper. I covered cricket as well as David Graveney. I was the Durham cricket writer from the minor counties all the way through into the first class game. Went on foreign tours. Yeah, that was me with Tim Rich and the Sunderland Echo in South Africa, a South African tour with Durham in 1985, 95. It was great. It was 10 years on the Journal. Absolutely loved it. Got to do a little bit of broadcasting as well because in those days, in the early days, if you covered whichever team you covered playing away from home, Newcastle or Sunderland, and we used to swap. We didn't have like a set, one person doing one club. Whoever did the away team did the match reports for Radio Newcastle. So I did a little bit of broadcasting then, which was terrible. I've got the tapes upstairs, and it's awful.
Under lock and key.
But it was great, and writing was all at the time. Writing was all I ever wanted to do.
Amazing, great stuff. Great. I mean, that cements, that early part of your career. But what took you into television? Then you see you did a little bit of broadcasting, which you've got under lock and key. What took you to Tyne Tees and being part of that sports team back in the day?
Yeah, well, actually, it was Alan. It was Alan Shearer's signing. So the day Shearer signed at Newcastle, I was covering it for the Journal, and Roger Thames was there, obviously head of Tyne Tees Sport at the time, and he bumped into me, and I was, God, what a team that was. Yeah, and when you look at it, some Dawn Thewlis is still on Look North and has been in TV for all our life. Simon O'Rourke, who joined Tyne Tees the month before me, still there and is doing an incredible job keeping sport going on Tyne Tees. He's been there 29 years this year. Ian Payne obviously is still going, and Brian Swanson on the left there is now head of media for FIFA. So that ain't a bad team. We often say Roger didn't make many duff signings. So he saw me at Alan's press conference, and he said, look, I've got a vacancy coming up, and I know you've done a bit of broadcasting, because by then, when I was doing the cricket, I started getting called, because there was at every Durham match for 5 years. I started getting calls from radio stations saying, look, we know you're there. Would you do as a match report? And I was picking up the phone, dialing, speaking for 30 seconds, put the phone down, thinking, God, that's a piece of cake compared with sitting crafting 2,000 words of beautiful prose, And Roger asked me in for he said, come for a chat. And naively, I didn't realise this was an interview. So I went in, I'm chatting to him in his office the next day, and he said, since you're here, you might as well do a screen test. And I'm sitting there thinking, oh, he never told me this. I haven't got my best tie on, I haven't done my hair. Maybe I'll tell him, maybe I'll say I'll come back tomorrow. And then I thought, no, actually, if you're on telly, this is what you've got to do. And at a minute's notice, you've got to stand in front of a camera and talk to hundreds of thousands of people. So I did it. And if you saw my screen test, you would say, how did that bloke ever get on television? Because I'm sitting there like this, I'm reading a script, and I'm desperately trying not to make a mistake. But then they asked me to talk for 2 minutes on any sports topic. You've got your earpiece in, you're listening to the gallery. They say, we'll tell you when there's a minute left, 30 seconds left. We'll count you down from 10, and you finish, you've got to end on 0. And I talked about Durham cricket because I followed them around for 5 years, and I knew everybody from the chairman to the tea lady. And I got sort of halfway through. Yes, Ian Botham. God, blimey. I'm not sure where the hat.
I love that. That's my favourite photo of you, Jeff, that I've found. What a classic. That's proper news hound.
It was trendy at the time. But I talked about Durham cricket, and I came, I finished the whole argument on 0, and I got the job. And I still wake up in a cold sweat occasionally thinking, if I'd said to him, can I come back tomorrow? Somebody else could have stepped in and done that, and my life would have been totally different. So again, when I'm talking to kids, students, whatever, I say, take opportunities when they come along. What's the worst thing that can happen? It doesn't work for you. If you don't try, you never find out. And I got into TV, and it was great. I just felt like I never worked a day in my life, to be honest.
I mean, what was the biggest event that you covered for Tyne Tees?
Biggest one from Tyne. Probably. I think the biggest thing I did for Tyne Tees was I made a half-hour documentary with Brian Clough.
Oh,
So we had a series called Football Flashback, which was did what it says in the tin. It was about old football footage from shoot days. Again, if you're under the age of 30, you won't know. Shoot was the name of Tyne Tees' Sunday afternoon regional football match. They pick a match every week, and it was great. And my one regret when I went to Tyne Tees, first thing I did, first free moment, I was down in the archives looking for all football footage. This is 1996, and they chucked most of it out. Unfortunately, the program itself went out live, so nothing was recorded, and the matches themselves were shot on these massive cylinders, 1-inch tape, 1-inch film, and they got to a stage in the late 70s where someone had said, "What's all these football matches? Nobody's ever going to want to watch old football matches again. Taking up loads of room. Get rid of it." Fortunately, they'd snipped out most of the goals and lashed them all together, but all that footage just went in a skip somewhere. I still like to think someone somewhere might have fished it out and it might be hidden in a cupboard somewhere in Newcastle, but sadly. So we did this series called Football Flashback, and we wrote to Brian Clough and said, "Would you be part of the program?" And my job was every episode I used to go out to someone's house or whatever and interview them. So I went to Dublin to see Liam O'Brien. I went to Brescia to interview the lovely late Pavel Cernacek, who just was a super guy and remained a friend from then until he died. I did Heine Otto, Middlesbrough's first foreign player, overseas player. Went over to Ajax in Amsterdam to interview him. Went to Minneapolis St. Paul's to interview John Tudor. Again, sadly, someone we've lost not so long ago. And we wrote to Cloughie, and he wrote back, and he said, "I get hundreds of these, and I turn them all down, but because it's you, because it's Tyne Tees, I'll do it." And we ended up turning it into a whole half-hour documentary called the Life of Brian, which I think half of it, for some reason, you'll find on YouTube if you Google Life of Brian Tyne Tees. I don't know where the other half's gone to. And it was just about his time in the Northeast, obviously growing up and playing for Middlesbrough and then playing for Sunderland, and then a little bit about, and obviously starting in management at Hartlepool. And it was just amazing. I was sitting across the table for an hour and a half. He just talked, and I'm sitting there thinking, it's Brian Clough. It's Brian Clough there sitting talking to me. And I've got the rushes, what we call the rushes, the raw tape on VHS. So I can't always watch it. But I've got the whole interview. I just kept it because it was Brian Clough.
Fantastic. Great stuff. Great memories. Moving on really in your career, you moved from Tyne Tees to the BBC. Now, lots of players have made that jump from Newcastle to Sunderland, Sunderland to Newcastle. Is it the same kind of thing?
Yeah, it was. Yeah, Roger Tame. So Roger, bearing in mind, he gave me my job nearly 30 years ago. Whenever I see him, he still says, "How's life on the dark side?" So, yeah, not that he's ever quite forgiven me. Yeah, it was. It was very fortuitous. I had an appraisal with Roger in 2003, being my boss, and he said, "What do you want to do long term?" And I said, "Well, I want your job. Yeah, I want to be head of Tyne Tees Sport." And he said, "Look, if my job goes, if I leave next year, 5 years time, my job's going to go as well. There will be no head of sport, because we had a sports department of 10, and all we did all day was just talk sport and watch football matches, and we had all the newspapers. We only ever read the back page. We had CFAX on all the time. Shows you how long it was. Get it, see what, waiting for the pages to turn over. And it was like being back at school, and it was those sort of 5.5, 6 years were the best years of my working life because it was exciting. I was in TV for the first time, and we were traveling the world. Traveled the world with Newcastle in the Champions League, and just had so many great experiences. And the BBC, I mean, it was great. I had a fantastic time, and I got into the news side as well, and had a whole different experience. But it was, see, I mean, that shirt and tie is gone, by the way. Whoever said that was a good look. No, and it was great. It was just an opportunity came along at the BBC. They were changing from just doing sport on a having a sports section on a Monday and a Friday, and maybe in midweek, to having it every night of the week. And I think we are still, Look North is still the only BBC region that has a designated sports slot every night, Monday to Friday, which just reflects the appetite in the Northeast, and so I loved it, but it was different. Instead of making programs like we did at Tyne where we did football flashback, we did Cafe Sport. You might remember it was a Sunday afternoon,
yeah.
Sunday where everyone used to sit around on tables and yeah, it was all a bit weird, but it was good fun because you made sports features and you met loads of different people. We had a full time, which was the slot just after 5 o'clock on a Saturday, which was our own results service. With action from some of the local games like Hartlepool and Darlington, sometimes Gateshead, and it was great. Whereas the BBC was just news; it was just churning out the news every day, Monday to Friday, sometimes at weekends. So fun, but not in the same way as Tyne Tees. And Roger was right when he said Tyne Tees was shrinking. They got Tyne Tees would take initially there were 18 regional ITV stations around the country. Tyne Tees was taken over by Yorkshire, who were taken over by Granada TV, and now it's just one ITV. And the sports desk of 10, when I was there, is now Simon O'Rourke on his own, doing an unbelievable job keeping it going. So it was a good move. And I loved working for the BBC. Anywhere you go in the world, you mention those letters BBC, and just about everyone knows straight away who you are or where you're from. But yeah, I still get some grief.
I don't know why. I genuinely think as well. I mean, people just don't understand. That it's down to the lack of finance going into local TV as well. I mean, some great programs stemmed on ITV. Sports programs, Seat in the Stands. It gave Eamon Holmesy's break back in the day, and DIY TV, which is like talked about all different types of subjects, but eventually just the budget shrunk. And like you say, Simon O'Rourke does a fantastic job. Literally, he's a one-man band, and gone are the days of a boom operator and a lighting technician and the presenter. Now it's literally one man and his camera, isn't it, or one woman and his one woman and a camera.
Yeah, which I do. So I go to most Sunderland games and occasionally Middlesbrough games as well. For Look North, although I've left because. Premier League games, Newcastle's fine. So Premier League games, what happens is we sit across the satellite feed from about quarter of an hour before kickoff until about an hour and a half after the final whistle. So we sit across the feed that's going to match of the day, and it means we get all the shots, the camera shots from players warming up before the start, all the different camera angles after the game, all the interviews, and comes into the studio. And on a Monday, that's the big job, is to compress it into like a minute and a half and choose the best bits. Outside the Premier League, there's no coverage like that. So if we want any post-match interviews from managers, we've got to do them ourselves. And as you say, there's no budget now to pay a day rate for a cameraman to go down to the Riverside or the Stadium of Light and hang around all day for what is essentially makes 20-25 seconds of TV time. So I go with the camera, I go to matches, I do the interviews, I make sure the frame nicely, as nicely as I can, in focus, and the sound. I do all that myself, and I still enjoy it because that gives me the involvement still with football.
Yeah, great stuff. Okay, that is enough grilling of Jeff. I think I was kind, Jeff. I
I
didn't.
think you were. Yeah.
It was the photographs probably were a bit of a surprise, but we're going to have a quick ad break and then we are going to focus on the new play. Big thanks to all our sponsors. Skips and Bins. Say hello to low-cost waste disposal with pay-as-you-go and contract waste management. Their website, skipsandbins.com. Contact them, www.skipsandbins.com/contact. Big thanks to Mr. Vicky's Sauces, handmade in Cumbria. Their website, mrvickies.co.uk. Email info@mrvickies.co.uk. Telephone 01768 210 102. Thanks to our fanzine sponsor, United Group Travel, UK Coach Holidays. There are no strangers on our tours, just friends you haven't met yet. 2 crew, driver and courier, local family company, 3-star plus quality hotels, no interchanges. Hot and cold snacks and drinks available on the coach, all excursions included. Their website, www.unitedgrouptravel.com. Email beverly.ugtl@gmail.com. Telephone 01670 632 460 or mobile 0791 666 4174. A big thanks to Media Arts for all the technical side of things. And if you want to listen to us as a podcast, you can find us on Sport Social Podcast Network. We're also available on iTunes, Spotify, and other podcast providers. If you want to support the channel, then hit the subscribe button. We still do 7 shows a week. Hit the like button, which is the thumb underneath this video, and click share to your social media. You could also take out a monthly membership or an annual membership at nufcmatterspodcast.co.uk. For the lifetime membership, you can pay £25 and get a pen, a beer mat, a fridge magnet, a badge and a keyring and your membership card and entry into the monthly draw. Some events coming up, 27th of June 2025, the end of season party. Beresford, Howie and Watson will be at the Tyneside Irish Centre with Joe Allen in aid of North Tyneside Age UK. You can get your tickets for that one from nufcmatters.co.uk or from Woucher. No Covers takes place at the Cluny. That's on the 29th of June, midday till 3:45, and tickets are £10 from theclooney.com or newcastlelegends.com. Northern Horizon, a Blake 7 convention, takes place on the 9th of August, 10 till 4 at the Tyneside Irish Centre. Come and be some of the cast and crew in aid of Age UK North Tyneside Dementia. Tickets from nufcmatters.co.uk. An evening with Peter Beardsley and Chris Waddle takes place on Friday the 23rd of January 2026 at the Tyne Theatre and Opera House. You can get tickets from the box office 0844 249 1000 or from tynetheatreandoperahouse.uk. And Bad Manners are back in the Northeast at the O2 City Hall, Friday the 30th of January 2026. Tickets from ticketmaster.co.uk. And we have copies of The Entertainer's book, signed by Les Ferdinand, available from nufcmatters.co.uk. Okay, welcome back to NUFC Matters with my guest, Jeff Brown, who is here to talk about this, The Bench. Jeff, is a play that you have written, and it tells the story of Vicky, a single mother struggling with the pressures of daily life, and Eddie, a young footballer striving to find his place on and off the pitch. Though from different worlds, their unexpected meeting on a park bench reveals shared struggles and unlikely hope. So, Jeff, great stuff this. Looking forward to it. And Carol Weirs, who's a good friend of mine, has got Carol W Productions. She's the co-producer of this. So she is helping this become a reality for you. So tell us about it. Why have you got into writing, Jeff, first of all?
Yeah, I think theatre was always sort of a big part of my life when I was a young lad. Whenever I'd find myself in London in my sort of late teens and 20s for football matches, I'd end up going into West End, and in those days, for £1, you could pay and get a student standing at the back. So you stood at the back of the stalls for a quid. So I saw things like Evita and Accidental Death of an Anarchist, and Noises Off, some fabulous productions. And I was always, and I was always a big theatre goer. Our daughter is in the West End at the moment. You know, she's in the play That Goes Wrong. So it's all, and my wife writes plays as well. And as a journalist, I think you always feel you can write things other than just factual stories, going on filling the back page or the front page. So I'm trying to think when it was, probably about 2012-ish. I took a playwriting course with Live Theatre down on the quayside of Newcastle, and absolutely loved it, and thought, I really want to give this a go. My first play was called Cornered, and it was about David Corner. I'm sure a lot of Newcastle fans still remember. It gave away the goal. Played for Sunderland, 18-year-old, 6 foot tall and ginger, playing his 5th game for Sunderland for his hometown team. Gave away the winning goal at Wembley in the 1985 Milk Cup final, and his life changed forever after that moment. So I wrote a monologue about it, and it was to try and get him a bit of redemption, because he got so much grief from the fans. I mean, physical as well as verbal. So he had his, at various stages, he had his teeth knocked in, he had his nose broken, his jaw broken. He's got a plate in his head and above his eye, where he got his eye socket knocked in, from fans coming up to him and saying, you cost us a cup final, and smacking him. And then he went on to become to join Durham Constabulary, and he said, in his words, he said, "I never thought I'd find a job where I was hated even more than when I was a footballer." So that gave me an appetite for it. That was a monologue, and I thought, now I want to branch out, do something a bit more ambitious. And yeah, I think the germ of the idea came when a guy called Britta Sombalonga, do you remember, striker, signed for Middlesbrough? And I read about his background, and he was born in the Congo and then raised in, I can't remember, if it's France or Holland, and then came to England. And I remember thinking, I wonder what that's like. It must be a really interesting life. And then that was the germ of it. So the idea is that Addy is a black footballer who, born in the Congo, raised in France. He comes to play for an unnamed team. They are just called the Town, in the northeast, struggling Premier League team, and he's it's tough. He's not scoring goals. He's not getting much game time, so he spends a lot of time on the substitutes bench. But on a park bench, as you can see, he meets Vicky, who is a single mum on benefits, who's also caring for her mum at the same time, and she's a lost soul with not much money, and he's a lost soul with a lot of money, and they appear to be from totally different worlds, but as they keep meeting up on the bench, they find they've got more in common than they think. He's got his agent with him, Mike, and I sort of spoke to quite a few players for a few football agent stories. I'm sure there's plenty more to come out. And Vicky's got a best friend, Bex, who she confides in, and so initially the play ran for 4 nights, 6 shows at the Customs House in South Shields in 2023, and the reaction I got was beyond anything I could ever have hoped for. It really did go down well. Including the best line from the reviewers was, "You don't have to be a football fan to enjoy this." So, so football's at the heart of it, but it's a boy meets girl story. But it's also, I think, as I developed it, the reaction to the 3 black guys missing penalties at the Euros for England, and the abuse they suffered, I actually thought, there's a darker side to this, and so that came into it a lot more. And I spoke to Show Racism, the Red Card, some of the guys there. Gary Bennett was one of the ones who helped, and they've come on board. And for the tour, because as I say, it got such a good reception. People said, you've got to take it on further. So it's taken 18 months, but we've got this month-long tour of the Northeastern Cumbria coming along. And while I'm obviously absolutely thrilled and can't wait for it to happen, one of the nice sort of spin-offs is that Show Racers and the Red Card are backing it, and they're going to have a stand at every performance. They've got together with Gala Durham, who've done a fantastic job producing it and have been so good. They produce an education pack, and that it is funded by the Northeast Combined Authority, who thought this was a great idea, and we're going to take it out to 12 different schools, and it's using scenes from the play to help push the anti-racism message, and hopefully, I wrote it as a bit of fun, but if it can have some sort of effect, and change a few kids' minds, then that would be fantastic. I'm totally humbled by the fact that they put their faith in this, and and I can't wait. Rehearsals start on the 28th of April, and then it's just like full on all the way through April, May, and June.
Fantastic. I mean, you've got a great cast, and headed, I guess, with Davy Nellis in there as well. I mean, Davy been on the show a couple of times to promote other stuff. I'm sure we'll be able to get Davy on before the plague gets on the road. But must be great for you. I mean, I know myself as a writer, it's great to be able to see people make your characters come to life, Jeff.
I thought when you're sitting there and the curtains are open and it starts and you get the first reaction, first of all, it's such a relief. I think, people are enjoying it, thank goodness. And then occasionally they'll laugh in places where you don't expect them to laugh. Oh, great! I'm gonna laugh. I mean, it's sort of light and shades. There are moments where I'd like to think it's funny, and there are moments where it gets pretty dark. But the cast, I have to say, it wasn't all down to me. The Customs House initially said they would produce it. I'd put the play in for a competition at the People's Theatre in Newcastle, and it didn't win, but it was shortlisted, so I knew it was of a reasonable standard. And then Customs House took it on, and the first day we had a table reading, so all the cast sit round, read through the script, and they came back with suggestions, saying, well, my character, how about if he does this or if she does this? And they invested in it so much, and what they gave me back, I went back that night and literally I spent 4 hours till about midnight rewriting, got up at 6 o'clock the next morning, rewrote for another 5 hours, and came back, and all their suggestions had lifted it from something that was all right to several levels. So, which is why I kept faith with the original cast, all bar one, who Adam Donaldson, who couldn't make it, but that gave us the opportunity to bring in Dave Nellis, who I've watched so many times over the years, and I think he's going to be fabulous.
You will be, yeah. The cast's great, wonderful cast, and as you've already said, I mean, it is going out on tour, which is 22nd of May until the 21st of June. We'll give it another plug. Anybody who wants to look for the venues, etc., that's the website that you need to go to, www.carolwproductions.com/the-bench. I'll leave that on the screen just so everybody can get it. You have branched out, other than writing, into podcasts as well, and as you know, and you've done your own tour with Ian Payne, who you mentioned earlier on. Got some photographs, more modern photographs, so no dodgy hats or haircuts.
Thank you.
But what's this been like, going out and interviewing? I mean, it's something I've done for 25 years, interview my sporting heroes on stage, but you've been doing it on a podcast, and you've managed to do some great stuff, mate. I've really enjoyed listening to them.
Oh, thanks very much. Yeah, it was great. It really was fun. I mean, I did 8 for BBC Sounds. Alan Shearer obviously was one of the first. Glenn McCrory, Brendan Foster, Steve Harmison, who was an absolute hoot. Stephen Miller, who I've followed his career for the past 30 years. What a great guy. Katie McLean, who was the captain of England women's rugby team, probably the most interesting, because I considered just about all of them mates, people that I've got to know and got really friendly with over the course of my career. The one I didn't know was Savannah Marshall, the boxer from Hartlepool, who was her nickname used to be the silent assassin because she was fierce in the ring, but out of it she barely opened her mouth. And I thought, what is this? It's a very, very short podcast if she hasn't changed. She has just developed into such a lovely person and had some great stories. And that was probably the most interesting because I didn't really know her in the way that I knew the rest of them. And Steve Harmison was just fabulous. Harmy is such a great character, and yet when he was a cricketer, he was a most reluctant interviewee, and he was the biggest blooming fidget ever in the world, doing this and rubbing his hair and pulling his ears and everything. He still does that, but he can do it on radio now and nobody sees.
And you've been out with Ian. I mean, you've done a couple of great shows with Ian out and about at local theatres and stuff. What's that like?
Yeah, that just happened to be the matching mustard jumpers. I'm not quite sure what that was all about. It's not a team strip. Yeah, we local playwright called Ed Woff suggested it to us, and we did it at the Lytton Phil, just along from Newcastle Central Station. We did that about 18 months ago, and then and it went down really well. So we did another one with another two at the Customs House last year, and now he's got us on tour. So we're going to the Gala in Durham, North Shields Exchange, Bishop Auckland Town Hall, and where's the other one? I should remember it. Can't remember.
It'll be out there. It'll be out there on the internet. People
It'll
can
be out
Google
there
these things.
somewhere.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's great. It's the two of us. Again, it's a little bit, blokes off the telly and people see you and I mean the nicest thing anyone says about when they meet you in real life is they feel they know you because you've been in the front rooms every night for the past however many years. But it's just finding out a little bit more behind the scenes, so about our backgrounds, some of the stories, some of the people we've met along the way. There's even a bit of music. I'm not going to give too much away, but yeah. Just revealing the other sides to the two of us, and it's been great. I've known Ian for nearly 30 years, and he's a good lad and an excellent reporter and journalist, and we really do have fun. Yeah.
And as a presenter, it goes hand in hand. You get asked to go and do various events as well, Jeff. And you've been and done a few over the years. There you are with Vera, our
Yeah.
Brenda Blethen. Do you enjoy doing those, Jeff?
I do, yeah. I love them. Brenda, I didn't actually tell Brenda that I thought her Geordie accent was a little bit suspect, but hey, she got away with it for years. Who am I to judge? I did a really interesting one just a couple of days ago. I did Kate Adie, a Q&A session with Kate Adie, and who again, I still have people coming up to me saying, "Oh, I used to watch you growing up," which obviously makes me feel about 90. But I said the same to her. I watched you when I was growing up, and I watched you on the telly. And it was only when you start really looking at the things that she did. I mean, she was at some of the biggest world hotspots. Both the Gulf Wars, troubles in Northern Ireland, Tiananmen Square, Bosnia. She really was everywhere. And for any journalist, I mean, now you see quite a few women out in the front line. But back then in the 80s and 90s, she was the only woman going out and doing that. Absolute trailblazer. Slightly deaf now, which I think she says was partly she was born with it, but also the number of bombs that went off around her. But she was fascinating. Yeah, I love doing those sort of things.
Okay, my last question before we finish is: who's the person who was the hardest to interview, Jeff, for you?
Hardest to interview, possibly Peter Mandelson.
Oh, right. There's the one. I didn't expect that. So what was the situation and why was it the most difficult interview?
And it was the most difficult interview because I wasn't prepared for it. You've heard the one, haven't you? Fail to prepare, prepare to fail.
Yeah.
I was doing an interview. This is when in the days of New Labour, and there were grumblings. Why were there so many Northeast MPs in the cabinet, and yet we never seemed to get anything. We never seemed to get the lickings of a dog. I think they were almost trying not to be, show favouritism, and fortunately he was in London and I was in Newcastle, so I wasn't actually facing him. And I'd just before I went in, someone handed me a copy of the Northern Echo, and I didn't read it properly, and I misquoted somebody, and he went off on this complete rant. I mean, it was a real. And even when I tried to interview, no, and I remember sitting there thinking, yeah, this is why people don't like you, isn't it? And when I came off, when it finished, I thought, great TV, fantastic. And then I read this article a bit more closely, and the things I'd been suggesting, I just got it wrong. And I went out I went into the newsroom. There's my wife not realising this has been recorded. It's on. Yeah, she's now ducking down under the screen.
Don't worry about it.
We've won the premium. Oh, that's great. We've won the premium bonds, apparently. She's going to find out. It'll be 25 quid. It only ever is. Anyway, just to finish that story. So I went in the newsroom and I said, that great Peter Mandelson interview. I said, I think you can use about 30 seconds of it.
Oh, dear me.
Well, I must tell you one of the nicest, something that I wrote that upset somebody, but this shows you again what one of the nicest things about football and getting to know people. In my very early days at the Journal, you could just rock up to the training grounds and talk to anybody, and I used to go to Benwell every day for the Journal, Newcastle's old training ground, and these were in the days of Gaza as well. I mean, what a guy! And Joe Allen. Joe was one of my good contacts back in the day. And I was coming away from the training ground, and Glenn Roder, who was the captain, said, "Can I have a word with you, Jeff?" And bear in mind, I'm a 25-year-old young, rookie reporter, my first big job. He said, "Just come into my car." So I sat in the front seat of his car. He's in the driving seat, I'm in the passenger seat. He said, and it was something that I'd written about him on the Saturday, and he had an injury, and I'd written, Glenn Roder was forced to cry off at the weekend. And to me, that just meant he couldn't make it. He was injured, and he said, "Cry off." He said, "Where I come from." This is my Cockney accent. Apologies for it. He says, "Where I come from, that means you're a coward. You've chucked in the towel." And I said, "God, Glenn, sorry, that really wasn't what I meant." But he didn't rant and rave. He sat me down, a young lad, and he just explained it to me, and he just said, "That's okay." He said, "We're good now. I just wanted you to know." And that sort of contact that you used to be able to have with players, when you actually got to know them, before the days of Premier League really came in, and then they've all got press officers, and then you get 2 minutes with someone in a room with 30 other journalists. It was. I loved that those early days, the 80s and the 90s, where I had the home phone numbers of all the Newcastle players. I could ring any of them up, and they'd give you a story. I miss those days of journalism. They're never going to come back, but I was lucky. As I said to you earlier, I worked. I had 42 years of working as a journalist. My dad started off in the shipyards, went in the Merchant Navy, ended up in an engineering factory. He grafted. I never grafted. I just did what I loved. I watched football. I watched sport for a living, and yeah, no complaints.
Well, Jeff, you are a legend to us, as a sports fan and as somebody who has, in my own way, covered Newcastle United for the best part of 30 years now. It's been a pleasure to have you on our screen. Great to be able to see something different coming from you again. You're still creative, which is why a lot of people respect you and admire you. The bench is touring. Thursday, 22nd of May to Saturday, the 21st of June, 2025. That is the website down below. For more information, you can find out where it's going to be and how you can get to see it. Please go along and support Jeff's play. I'm sure there's going to be many, many more. And Jeff, look forward to seeing you, hopefully, one of those performances in the near future.
I'm going to be at nearly all of them. So if you want to come up and say hello or have a go or just do anything, yeah, I'll be there.
Jeff, thanks for your time, mate. Take care.
Thanks, Steve. Absolute pleasure.